morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Global Cafe. So my name is Katrina Bazanis. I'm a Director of Policy Advocacy and Innovation at the IFA. And today we're very much looking forward to this session with Dr. Ad van Berlo on exploring the ethical imperative for data collection, sharing, and merging. So as we delve deeper into the age of artificial intelligence, it's crucial to reflect on its implications for our aging population, but also the unique considerations associated with data collection and sharing. So from assisting with daily tasks to enhancing healthcare and social connectivity, AI holds immense promise for improving the quality of life of older people. However, alongside these different opportunities also come different ethical considerations and challenges that demand consideration. So in today's session, we'll be exploring where artificial intelligence can meet the unique needs of older people and the experiences of older adults while also maintaining human-centeredness. So our expert today is Dr. Ad van Berlo. Dr. Van Berlo is both a mechanical engineer and a psychogerontologist. He has a PhD in biomedical technology, and he has worked in R&D in the field of biomedical technology. For over 30 years, Dr. Van Berlo has been working in the area of smart houses and e-health, and is currently the CEO and R&D manager at SmartHomes. This organization was founded in 1998 and has become the Dutch National Expert Center for Smart Houses and Smart Living. So SmartHomes is currently participating in several European-funded ambient assisted living and e-health projects where they're involved in investigating user requirements, process design, technical integration, and much more. So before we sort of dive in, I will mention that, as we always kind of invite participants of the Global Cafe to share their thoughts, questions, and insights with the group. And today's Global Cafe will be, really be, partially a discussion with the audience as well to gain your thoughts and perspectives on the challenges of AI, aging, data collection, and also the ethical implications. So I'll invite you to sort of respond to some questions that we may be voicing to you today throughout our discussion. So I'll kick things off without further ado to Dr. Van Berlo. Welcome, Dr. Van Berlo. And, first off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story, what led you into working in this field of connecting older adults with technology?
Yeah, good morning and good afternoon, good evening, perhaps all over the world. Thank you, Katrina. You gave already a nice introduction. I'm a biomedical engineer by background, and I found the work in dialysis and implantable devices very attractive. But back in 91, 92, I came in the new area of aging, so it's about 30 years ago, and then I found this much more challenging, and knowing that aging is also about psychology, sociology, biology, medical things changing when age. So that brought me to this area where I have combined work in the smart home area particularly, and e-health, but mostly for people who are aging and need care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm wondering if you can, tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing with Smile eHealth and how this is sort of enabling spaces for older adults and supporting aging.
Yeah. Well, SMILE, it's an acronym meaning Smart Inclusive Living Environments. It's a collaboration project between several partners from academia and companies, care organizations from several countries, Canada, Norway, Denmark, and the Netherlands, and also Greece. The European partners are funded by the European Commission. And what we aim to develop is a sort of technical infrastructure that not only supports older people to live independently, but also fosters collaboration between and learning between all the people and members of their circles of care, what we call circles of care. And this technology should support all the people and these circles of care to the changing circumstances and preferences, and so that they can help self-manage, self-help their own condition. And what we mean with Smile eHealth is a sort of combination of the use of sensors and wearables and apps, plus what we call a digital care facilitator and a chatbot to communicate with the older persons. How we came involved. You asked how we came involved as SmartHomes in this. As I said earlier, and you said that in the introduction, we are working a lot, many years in international projects. So we co-authored also in writing this particular project proposal back in 2020, and that's how we came involved. And obviously, the smart living environment is part of our interest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask about kind of artificial intelligence systems. And, obviously this is something that we're hearing a lot of, in our daily lives, both, not even kind of inside the aging space, but just kind of in every facet of society and life. But can you talk a little bit about, firstly, what exactly is artificial intelligence? And secondly, how are these systems being used to support aging in place?
Yeah, we hear a lot about AI. It's a sort of word in the meantime, and it's going very rapidly. I will come back later on that. But what we do in Smile is that we develop what we call then an AI-based system that aggregates data from various digital sources. And when we have aggregated the data, we can do real-time data analysis. We combine that with a chatbot, what we call then the conversational agent. That's a chatbot in our case as well. Mm-hmm. And we adapt that to the needs of all the people. And the chatbot provides access to these aggregated data. Besides, there is also a layer of machine learning with training models, and then we can extract knowledge from the data, also historical data. And then we can identify, with the help of these training models, user intentions, habits, and needs, and we can provide then suggestions regarding daily and social activities, health issues, and so on. And that's all based on these, and that data that we aggregate and the analysis that we put on that. Mm-hmm. So that makes the system, let's say, artificially intelligent, AI. It's of course not very intelligent, but it helps us in automatic analysis and suggestions. Mm-hmm. We can, in addition to that, also find a lot more on what an individual older person does during the day, because of the answers in the chatbot, what the care path is. We can identify obstacles, needs, habits, as I said, and then suggest different things in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of a practical question. How does it work? How does the older person is kind of, I guess, on an interface, with the chat function, kind of like we are now, and they're able to kind of just input information or respond to questions? How exactly does it work practically?
Well, Maybe I can best give an example from Denmark. Well, and not really, but in general, what we do there with COPD patients,
Mm-hmm.
based on sensor data, the health status of a patient is being monitored automatically, and if the situation, the health situation is going worse, then the e-health system will automatically notice that and suggest the doctor or the nurse to adapt, for instance, the medication in time in order to prevent hospitalization. And this saves already a lot of cost and improves the quality of life. But in addition, the Smile chatbot can then also suggest changes, for instance, based on weather, on quality of air, and that normally might influence his condition. So uh, uh, that's one thing. The other thing is that also we have developed a chatbot that the patient can enrich more social, richer life, can experience a more socially richer life, take part in outdoor activities, if possible, be in contact with other persons. And that's all at this moment done with an experimental chatbot. And it's not yet voice enabled, but it can be in the future. Right now, it's with typing messages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really kind of, fascinating that we now have, these types of technologies to do this. But I want to kind of understand, I guess, what are some of the challenges in, implementing this kind of technology?
Yeah, then we come up, I think, in what we see right now in the market already, overwhelming market with chatbots due to the ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
And what you see is that these systems are getting, let's say, quite dangerous. People get addicted to the newest chatbots that consider themselves as new personal friends. So we see now stories in the newspaper as that people are really getting in love with artificial systems and are totally addicted to that and don't see the real world anymore. So we must ensure that new AI, that's actually what we believe, that's very important, that AI-based systems should be trustworthy and more human-centered. Now, so we think that the development and the deployment of these systems, like we also try to do in Smile, respect fundamental rights and the applicable regulations. So regulations are being made worldwide in US in Europe. So we should ensure with these regulations that there is ethical purpose, and of course the systems must be robust and reliable. Yeah, that's at least what we think should be necessary in short time.
Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned kind of trustworthy AI. Can you, share a little bit more about that? And, how can AI be trustworthy?
Yeah, well, we think it should be human-centric. The development should be really human-centric.
Mm-hmm.
The human values should always be considered primarily, and we should always keep in mind to increase the citizens' well-being. And it would be helpful to use, I think, the principles of ethics. As we all know, there are up till recently, there are 4 principles of ethics. The principles of beneficence, do good. The principle of non-maleficence, do not harm. The principles of autonomy, preserve the human agency, and be fair, the principle of justice. And I think with the upcoming AI, we should add a fifth one, which is the principle of explicability, and operate transparently. And that is, I think, what we also see now in the European and the worldwide upcoming regulations. The principle of that these systems have to operate transparently is utmost important. So if we keep that all in mind, we could hopefully develop more, let's say, trustworthy systems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask about the legislation, because I think the legislation is certainly, a tricky part. Often the technology outpaces the legislation. So I'm wondering if you can share, anything you might know about, you sort of touched on it, but what types of legislations and regulations are being put into place, and what do you think is lacking that we really need to be putting into place?
There is legislation being developed and already adopted in many countries, but it does not prevent that companies come up with chatbots like you might probably know, like there is the one which is called Replica. There is the Visa, and you have, I saw here on my notes, a character AI, which is character AI is I think used already by 100 million people, and it promotes well-being. So that's good. And also the Replica chatbot that I saw is good. It's research among 1,000 users, I just read in the newspaper today, actually, has prevented that 3% of the people who had thoughts on suicide did not do to commit it, just because of using that chatbot. So you see, there are good chatbots, but there are also chatbots, as I said earlier, that make people totally dependent and bring people in a different mindset, and which is not good at all. How can you prevent that with legislation? I'm not sure if you can ever do that. Like there are so many other examples in developments in industry and companies that we cannot prevent with simple legislation. That's for me quite difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe other people have better ideas about that, but there are so. I mean, also the situation with online fraud, online events. It's difficult to grab. I cannot say more about that.
No, thank you so much for your answer. And yeah, I would invite kind of anybody as well that's on the line to share more about this if they kind of have any knowledge or any insights themselves. So I want to go back to maybe the healthcare kind of aspect of this, which is, you've kind of mentioned a lot of the really interesting benefits. I think that COPD example that you shared was really really helpful for understanding exactly how this technology can be used and how it can really, support maintaining function for people with different diseases, and also even more than maintaining function, really kind of striving through connection, or through going outside, or through having more robust kind of daily activities. So I'm wondering, how much is this actually being used for people, for if they have COPD or other types of different kind of conditions, at what kind of is the uptake, I guess you could say, in terms of getting this technology to these people, and what is also kind of the response from healthcare providers, different, government, because obviously this has kind of a trickle down effect into, the entirety of the healthcare system.
Well, I gave already the example of COPD with sensors and the what is in Denmark also called the e-doctor. That's a very successful way of helping people with COPD. Not connected to the chatbot yet, because that's what we are still studying. Mm-hmm. But what I think in general, or what I see in general, also just this morning I saw Stanford University's AI Institute has just released its 7th annual issue of the AI Index report. And that is really astonishing what is happening last year, 23. So it gives also that report a flashback on what has happened since 2015 with AI. And that's remarkable. I just make a quote, or I just look here in the data that I just saw by the coincidence this morning. It was just released this morning. And AI has already beaten us in significant benchmarks. In 2015, AI surpassed us in image classification, so that's a medical application, as you know. Image analysis from MRI and so on. A person can do the AI can do that much better than a person, and that was already the situation in 2015. But reading comprehension was better with computers, with AI systems in 2017, visual reasoning in 2020, and natural language inference was surpassed by AI systems in 2021. And what you see now is that the GPT-4 based model the solving a mathematical problems, mathematical questions, mathematical, let's say mathematics, can be solved now by a GPT-4 based model in 2023, so last year, better than the best human mathematicians. So it's going so rapidly, so quickly, that maybe in 2024, 25, we will see in the medical area a lot more astonishing improvements. Mm-hmm. So I don't know practical examples other than I mentioned from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I, again, invite, others to share any kind of practical examples that they're seeing as well in their own work. So I am going to go to a question from Shmuel, who is a daily contributor or a weekly contributor at our Global Café. And he's asking, what do you think collecting and sharing data, what do you think about collecting and sharing data is the imperative for improving the quality of different social, medical, and other important services? So I'll repeat that. So what do you think is the importance of collecting and sharing data for improving the quality of different social, medical, and other services?
Yeah, I think I have explained that already a little bit with all the examples, also what we're doing in Smile. Mm-hmm. So the importance is that, I think personally, if I look back on the systems that we are working in since 30 years without AI, then we saw that it was in the beginning of the smart home systems that I worked in. It was nearly impossible to adapt to the needs of an older person, particularly when these needs are changing over time. we had analog techniques. We had when we developed the first smart home back in 93, 94. An installation company had to go to the home and change the things at one day, etc., etc. It cost a lot of money. These days, now then came the digital infrastructure. It was already easier to change, adapt, to change a system to the changing needs, adapted to the changing needs. But what you see now is that these smart home systems become smarter by itself. They aggregate a lot of data and they can adapt. For instance, the light conditions, the temperature, the humidity in the home, etc., based on let's say patterns that have been analyzed over the past weeks, months, years, and that helps a lot. That's just one other example from my other area of smart homes where I've been working over time. So I see the benefits very strongly. What we do in Smile, we also adapt the personal touch, so persons can interact with the system, and that's a little bit different from the automatic systems that we worked in the smart home area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's, you know, the data is so powerful, I guess, with what you can do with it. I'm gonna go next to a question in the chat from Kara. Kara, did you want to come forward and voice your question to Dr. Van Berlo?
Yes, for sure. So firstly, thank you. Oh, there we go. Firstly, thank you very much for what's been such a fascinating discussion so far. Earlier, you were speaking about circles of care and how these professionals can utilize technology to support individuals when aging in place. So whether this is data gathered from a smart home or in more of like a medical setting. But what sorts of modifications have to be made in the ways in which these teams work, or how they collaborate together, or even just what their daily work looks like, so that they can effectively use this technology while also supporting their patients or clients?
Sorry, I did not understand entirely your question. You mean the people had to change? No, I didn't.
Yeah, so say if you have your registered nurse working within, and you support individuals who are aging in their homes, but you have data on them. What does this change about your workday? Because it's a very different model of care than, say, the model of care 20 years ago.
Yeah. Then I should maybe think about some examples, which is more practical than in general. Right now, we are also working in the Netherlands. So, as I said, we still work with COPD patients in Denmark. In the Netherlands, we work with another category of patients, namely with dementia. What you see there is that people get some devices that sensors in the home, but also devices like a GPS watch. That when a person is moving outside with dementia, it's moving outside the home, not necessarily in a nursing home, but living independently at home. That then the informal care can, of course, follow the person, and that is already helpful, but also the formal caregiver, in case there is no informal caregiver, what is often happening, or that also the formal caregiver can see changes in patterns of life, of sleeping behavior, of anxiousness, and so on. All the anxiety, all of these kind of things could not be seen before. Now you can see that with the devices, so that changes, I think, also the work of the professional caregiver in this situation. More relief of the care burden, but it can also give more efficiency in caregiving. So yeah, we all need to figure out what it means exactly for the professional care. It's totally different. There's more quality. There is more quality of care. There is also more peace of mind for the caregivers. But yeah, it gives also maybe more pressure. We all have to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, more pressure and just different, I guess, a challenge of how to support different members of the care team as well. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Kara. So just sort of a follow-up question to that before I kind of go back to the chat, which is really around, how do changes in function, whether it's cognitive function or sensory function, kind of affects the ability to engage with these types of systems. Take kind of that chat box, for example. And are you kind of thinking about how to adapt the actual kind of platform to accommodate for those different, potentially kind of accessibility, different types of accessibility?
I'm not sure I understand this question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, how do kind of different, potentially, either if it's cognitive deficit, sensory deficits, or things like that, how does that affect the ability to engage with, for example, the chat box that you're describing?
Now I understand. Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear the word sensory.
No worries.
Chatbots can of course be multimodal. That's also what we intend to do in Smile. Now we focus on written text messages, but it can be changed into audio feedback or for people with poor vision and so on. But still, I wonder, and that's my personal opinion, if a chatbot can be used by a person with cognitive problems, impairments. I'm a little bit more negative about that, seeing also the dangers, not what we do in Smile, because that is a closed system, but in general, also since most people with moderate to severe dementia, if living by themselves, have not the ability anymore to reason what is good or not, all the problems with that. So suggestions by computer might not be interpreted rightly, I think, by persons with these kind of problems. So cognitive impairment is what I should say, also based on my own experiences in this project, should be excluded from real chatbot interaction as we do see now.
No, that certainly makes sense. So I am gonna go back to the chat and ask a few more questions. So we have a question from Miss Anna Sangster. Anna, do you want to come forward and pose your question?
Yeah, thanks, Katrina, and thanks, Dr. Van Berlo. One of the questions I had was, picking an AI seems to be like picking a toothbrush this day. There's like a whole wall of options in front of you. There's AI for, photo, there's AI for writing, there's AI for all sorts of things. You talked a little bit about kind of, making sure you're interacting with a system that you trust. How, as a consumer, and like, what are some elements of a system that, consumers should be looking for when they're looking to engage with an AI?
Yeah. That's so difficult to answer. There is not an CE mark, I think, for chatbots yet worldwide. So people like in alcohol, tobacco, whatever, are how to say it, are attracted because of the marketing of the companies selling these things. Probably the same with chatbots. Why are there 100 million people? Why have they subscribed to Replica? Was it very good marketing? Probably yes. And do we know Replica is a good chatbot? We don't know. By now, there is research afterwards, and we see there are positive, but also many negative things. So at this moment, I could not say there is anything that but I'm not an expert, by the way, in chatbots. Let me say also that. Maybe there is already coming up some good CE mark or whatever you call it. I don't know if anyone from the audience has some experience with that, but. So therefore, we within Smile, we develop our own closed system again for that. But yeah, a company could also say we are closed and then sell all the data to different companies, as we see in many other instances. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Berlo. I just have one quick follow-up question, Katrina, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's kind of, you used the term kind of closed system a few times. I'm wondering what that kind of means and whether that has a definition that, is consistent from kind of, assistant across this kind of the conversation of AI, or whether, there's and again, we see that when there's lots of opportunities on the market, that there's flexibility in definition. So I'm curious to know like what a closed system means and whether that's consistent across at least this space of technology.
Yeah, maybe it's what we indeed mean within Smile is that experts within Smile have formulated possible answers to the different questions that can be posed. So we know for sure that these questions are the right ones. And with the real AI open systems, based on any influence from any data from any system outside, you cannot guarantee that the answers are not harmful, are not the right answers. So that's, I think, what I mean here with closed and open.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for those insights, Dr. Van Berlo. So I'm gonna go to a question. Brendan Sherlock, would you like to pose your question?
Yes, it's just to know how the sensors are they worn, or are they a chip inserted in the body, or what's the what way is that worked, or is it just a wristwatch? How do you communicate, in other words, with the patient?
Mm-hmm.
How we communicate with patients, you mean, you said something about sensors in the body or on the body, not in the body?
Yes, how, for any system to work, how is the communication? That's maybe my question. Between, you said, the base and the person.
The communication right now, but that's within our own project, is on a written basis. So you have to type in on your smartphone or on a computer what you like to know. But that's not. I think what in the near future, I think voice is by far the most used interaction modality for chatbots or for any system. You saw the attempts with Alexa and Google Home and so on a couple of years ago, and at that time it was not very flexible and not very not hearing everything what you said, but also here there's a lot of progress, and there are also a lot of human-like behaviors in these kind of systems by voice and by text. So. But yeah, not all people, and particularly not of older age, can type in so quickly that they can really communicate. So I think voice-based and then really human-like will be quite soon coming for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also just Mark Fenning has just put a comment into the chat. Mark, I wonder if you want to share any of the insights that you've garnered from the work that you've done in this space.
Well, it's not that I've done any specific work in this space, but I certainly study it and follow it. And if you follow what in Canada, an organization which some of you may be familiar with, Age Well.
Yeah.
And the work they're doing in this area is quite remarkable. I just put an article from one of my blog posts from 2022 talking about smart homes and law and ethics. And so there was a lot of concern about surveillance and stuff like that. So we really have to pay attention to what the users of these things are saying about how they're being treated with this kind of technology.
Thank you very much. That's interesting. I'm certainly will read it if you post it somewhere. In the smart home area, as I said earlier, I'm working there for 3 decades, more or less. And they have become from the beginning, we call them smart, but they were not really smart, but they are becoming smart recently because of all the sensors and data that is coming from the home. And we might indeed go into a situation that an older person, particularly a frail older person maybe, is not able to understand anymore what's going on in the smart home, and then is more or less forced to do things that he or she does not want. That's indeed, there comes the ethics again. But as long as it is for the benefit, beneficial for the older person to stay in the aging in place in the home, then you can say it's fine. But there are so many problems also in our country, in the Netherlands, where the smart home systems are open, are easily to be broken in by criminals, and that's what we see. So most of the smart home systems are, I cannot say maybe the most, but many of them are not safe and secure. So there's a lot of concern still going on here and work to be done.
Yeah, this actually relates really nicely to a question that Matali has posed in the chat. Matali, do you want to come forward and pose your question?
Yeah, for sure. A great conversation happening right now. I just wanted to know if there's right now, or if it's in development, any kind of learning opportunities for older adults to kind of navigate using smart homes, and whenever problems or issues come up, how they can actually troubleshoot that. So just wondering if there's like programs or workshops or videos, anything like that that's kind of going on right now.
Yeah, there are certainly these programs, but they are, of course, in the different countries. I'm not sure from where you're from, but in the Netherlands, yes, there have been programs to learn people use a smart home, particularly when it was in residences for older people. Training and how to use these devices for people who are digital illiterate or a little bit older. That's crucial. That's very important. So for sure they exist in many languages, many countries, and to different levels. It's important, as we also see here, the deployment of technologies within Smile. The simplest, what we tech people think is very simple, is not simple at all for older people who have not learned it during their earlier years. Absolutely. Doesn't say that it cannot be learned.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of an important thing, because how do you ensure that older adults then, actually have a will to use this technology, I guess, without sort of that, if they don't necessarily have, either that skill set or, that understanding of how it can help them, how do you kind of, bridge that gap?
I think, like in any field of consumer products or whatever you consider hobbies and so on, there is a group that likes a certain technology and there is another group, and maybe a bigger group, that doesn't like it or cannot use it. So that's not bad, unless you are, of course, in a position that you are living by yourself and you have some real basic needs. Then you have to maybe at a certain moment you can deny, for instance, that you need a pair of glasses if you don't see right. But if it comes to a situation that you cannot handle your daily life anymore, you have to to use a pair of glasses. So, and that's for some technology as well. And we see then indeed that some technologies are adopted, even if people would say, yeah, it's too difficult or too far away, but then they have to. So that's another thing. And then you have, of course, the early adopters. You have the people who are very prone in all kinds of new technologies, and you know that's very, very different. And I think we cannot. Yeah, if people are really not into tech, yeah, then there is always still hopefully some human help.
Yeah, I know there's a question from Eileen, which I do want to go to as well, but just kind of maybe one more follow-up question on this line of thinking, which is, I guess, how do you kind of a marketing question, I guess, which is how do people even kind of know that this technology is available to this extent to support, you know, there's so many different things that it can
That's
support.
true. That's one of the biggest issues that we see all the time with these kind of new developments. There are show demo houses where you see these kinds of technologies, but that's by far not enough. You see TV programs where also for older people, where technologies are promoted. There is, there are in villages and in communities, there are always evenings that people are coming together and showing your products. And of course, the care organizations that we see also in our country have these kind of sessions, evening sessions, morning sessions where they explain the technology. So a lot, there is a lot is being done, but by far not enough. We always see with informal caregivers the questions coming up. Yeah, I didn't know it was existing, and I don't know where to get it, and how much does it cost, and so on. That's always the case.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I see Eileen has a question in the chat. Eileen, do you want to pose your question to Dr. Van Berlo?
Thank you very much, Katrina, and thank you, Dr. Van Berlo. My question is a bit like, while I put in a while back, it's a bit of a follow-on from what you just said. If, for instance, you want to age in place and the normal aging process is going on, we want to know what are the first steps that an individual can take, but within a closed system. In other words, not out sharing data with somebody else, devices that will help and assist purely within the environment of their living area. Do you have a step-by-step guide or getting started? We're all familiar with, you know, a lot of other systems that are developed, like My Acorn, which you can use, but it's part of, you can have a companion app and you can link to your healthcare professionals. But is there something that can be within the home itself that the individual can monitor the data, control who's looking at the data, etc.?
Yeah, that's a very good and important question. We had a couple of years ago, we were developing together with a small inventor, let's say, a sort of button, sort of data switch button that you could switch off all data going out of the home and coming in the home. Unfortunately, that did not get to the market, but it was a way to control more or less, let's say, the data collection in the home, which is still important, but then preventing it going into, let's say, the big tech companies that make use of it themselves. So, yeah, it's an insolvable problem, I think. If you are connected to whatever system that uses data outside of your house, you must trust that the company is doing good for it with it. I don't see at this moment, other than saying yes, then you should use products without internet connection. But I don't see any other possibility right now to control that. Maybe you have yourself an idea. I'm not sure about if anybody else has, but I don't.
Yeah, where I'm coming from is, just to come back on that, is we have systems that where you count your steps, and you can put a little unit on yourself, a wearable, but you can read it and control it. You don't have to download it to somebody else or something else to read it. Is there something like that if you're going out and saying, a step by step, that you gradually then have to go using more other devices? But is there something that can be standalone and a closed system?
Yeah, they exist, but then you come, of course, in systems that once they need to be adapted or monitored or maintained, that someone has to come to your home, and that is not bad. That can be done, and certainly the mechanical aids that we still have, let's say, without any digital connection or data connection to a server or whatever, they exist and they can be very beneficial. I wanted to say something else and now I forgot. Sorry.
No worries. Well, thank you, Dr. Ram. And if it comes back to you, just of course share it with us. So I am just going to go next to a question from Cynthia in the chat. Cynthia, do you want to pose your question?
Yes, thank you. Nice to see you, Ed.
Hi, Cynthia.
This is so fascinating, but I'm sitting here wondering about the non-adopters of technology and their access. I mean, we have, sometimes it's just a matter of where you live that you do not have access, and other times it's just a matter of you don't want anything to do with that technology. And being able to maintain living healthy lives in your home. I mean, I heard of an illustration, it was in France, where a doctor absolutely refused, just went all online. You had to make your appointment online, would not accept a phone call to make. They just had a message machine that said, if you wish to make an appointment, go to this website. The person, and then isn't it really a human rights violation that somebody can't access a physician, a healthcare provider, if they don't adopt technology? So where do you think that all will end up?
Yeah, it's your right, to get access to a medical doctor. And if you're living remotely, that's what you mean particularly as well. If you don't have immediate access and cannot even phone maybe a medical doctor, how to. These situations certainly exist in I don't know, I wouldn't say poor regions or less privileged regions. They exist even, I think, in our modern societies. That I mean, in our country, we face shortages of home physicians. So it's sometimes you even in situations where you have an emergency case, you have to call a hospital instead of the home physician. But fortunately, we have that possibility still. I don't know how to solve that in regions where you don't have all these digital communications and where the doctor is not willing to help. That's a good question, but I don't have the answer. Sorry, Cynthia.
Well, if it's something for us all to collectively think about, Cynthia, because I think there always has to be that option available. And as you mentioned, it is kind of a human rights. If somebody can't access the care they need, it really is a human rights issue. So I want to, we are kind of rapidly approaching the end of our session. I want to ask one more question, which is, kind of related to Cynthia's question as well, and our whole discussion today, which is really just, how do we keep all of these things person-centered? Because at the end of the day, if they're not kind of meeting the needs of real people that are kind of on the other side of these technologies, how do we just kind of have that level of assurance? Because I think so often the technology really outpaces how the good that it can do and the actual goal of really just helping people, increasing people's health, connectivity, daily activities, all of those things.
And then the question, sorry,
Yeah.
the question, what's the question then?
My question is really just how do we, what are your thoughts on just keeping this person-centered and keeping people at the center of all of these technologies?
Okay. Yeah, well, in projects like Smile, we do that from the very beginning, and it's a requisite of all EU finance projects that you start with a couple of months or half a year of user requirements, including, and you do co-creation design, co-creation workshops, design with all the people themselves. So you put them in the center. However, that's easily said. In practice, and that's one thing we always have to take care. We did in Smile also with what we call the Ready instrument, which if people are interested, we can send some more information. But there we try to measure how a person is technologically ready to receive and use technology. But it's not difficult. It's very difficult to find the right representatives in co-design and put a human being in the center of developments. Because the tech-savvy people, the people who are able to speak and talk about their wishes, they are always present in these kind of co-creation designs. And the people who are less privileged, who are in the are less able to mention their wishes and so on. They are not there. They don't come. That's one thing. The other thing is, of course, that needs are always changing. So that's a plea for adaptive technologies. I see that happening also in companies and industry. I know quite some companies that were human-centered design and listening to the customer is key. But I've also seen many companies where they say, okay, we have now a certain level of technology, a certain, and we go to the next level, and they don't care about the customer. And it works sometimes, it works often, because the customer, was not involved, but can simply buy the products and use it or not. So it works, but in most cases, most successful is, of course, when there is involvement of all the people in this case, but also where the customer in general is central. But again, there are so many needs and different wishes and changing over time, so it's not that simple.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a complex thing to tackle, for sure. So we are, almost to the end of our session. Dr. Van Berlo, I'll give you a couple, just a minute to think about some just final takeaway messages while I introduce next week's speakers. So next week, I actually again have the pleasure of moderating our session next week on immunization and a life course approach to healthy longevity. So this will be in recognition of World Immunization Week, which is happening next week, as well as Vaccination Week in the Americas. And so we're going to be joined by Dr. Margarita Gazzelli and Dr. Enrique Vega from the Pan American Health Organization. So really looking forward to that session next week. And Dr. Van Berlo, I will hand it over to you for the final minute or so to provide any takeaway messages from our conversation today.
Okay, so we have talked a little bit about the development and deployment of AI systems, and that it should always ensure ethical purpose, and that they should also be technically robust and reliable. We think also, in addition to that, that when designing for all the persons, we need a strong co-creation approach. That was also very clear. And knowing now what's all happening in recent AI development, I think that frail older persons, cognitively impaired persons, should not be exposed to open AI systems, such as we have talked about the intimate relation chatbots. I think that's not a good idea. So maybe only closed, what we call closed systems, are of use and useful for older people. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Van Berlo. That was an excellent wrap up of everything that we just talked about. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, you know, comments in the chat have echoed. It's certainly topical. It's something we need to be talking about. And so I thank you so much for joining us, as well as thank you to all of our attendees that helped to kind of engage and make this a great session. And of course, thank you so much to the IFA team that helps to put this on every week. So thank you so much again, and have a great weekend to everyone.
Thank you.